I have some Happy Meal, some mail, and some kids projects to share with you guys today. I have first a little, I'm not sure if it's a card, I think it's a card that Nathaniel made, and it was his handprint. Check it out, isn't that great? Hi Philomena. And on the back it has the year, and they've drawn these things, and then it opens up. It says, Happy Halloween, love Nate. Isn't that the coolest? He made me a card. I love that. It's amazing. Hi, Karen. Thank you guys for sharing. It looks like the place where the hinge is where the pinky finger would be, because that would be, it would go like this. So it looks like they just took the pinky finger and just made it up this way. So anybody looking maybe to craft with grandkids, nieces, nephews, their own children, this is something that's a fun idea. And the next thing I have is, you remember that we were working on some of the letters with Nate, such as, I still have the letter C here, and I mentioned that we were missing the letter B. Well, we've finally seen the letter B show up in our house, and here's the letter B. And I suspected it was going to be a B, and this is so cute. This is amazing. I love it. This wax paper, isn't that cool? I love teachers. They're amazing. They do such great things with our kids. So cool. And I do realize that this is backwards, back to front, but whenever we actually do our crafting portion, it's going to equalize itself. So this is so cute. I love this. I love this little bee. And look how bright and fiery. We have a pumpkin. And Nate made this as well in school. Isn't that amazing? I love all of these arts and crafts the kids bring home. And yes, I do share them. And I save them too. Yeah, Philomena, it's so cute. Thanks, Karen. Yeah, the kids are doing such good things. There's a close look. Super cute. Super cute. So that's my kids crafts for this week, and I do get ideas from kids crafts too. Sometimes it's the colors that I see that they craft in, and sometimes it's a design. Hello Donna, thank you for sharing. So here is a mail share, and I say mail just because it's not Happy Mail, nobody sent this to me, but they have a new set of stamps at the post office, and I'm not really into collecting stamps or anything like that. However, I do like to choose a nice looking stamp to go on the cards that I mail. I'm taking the time and putting myself into the cards, so I like to make sure that it has a nice stamp as well. We've been enjoying the stamps that have the peace rose on them lately, and that's one of my favorite roses. And now this one, my husband, he usually does all of my mail runs, and he brought this one in. I was so excited. So it's called Birds in Winter, and I'll give you a look for all my bird-loving friends. I was so happy to see these come in. I absolutely love birds. You guys know that. Painting birds, crafting with birds, watching birds, listening to birds. While I work, I often will listen to a YouTube channel that has birds. So if you go to YouTube and you look in the search engine and find, what is it called? Now I can't think of it. You know, that's the way the brain works, right? It is videos for dogs or videos for cats, and there is a channel, there's several channels that'll come up, and one of them, I think his name is Paul Dunn or Paul Dunning. His videos are by far the best. he sets up his camera and the sounds of nature are so amazing. So while I'm crafting, I'm just listening to birds. I'm listening to all these bird songs, and sometimes there's squirrels that go in, and it's so much fun. Karen has some Cary Grant stamps. Oh my, that's nice. And Donna says, as a mom, remember to put the date on the back of their crafts. I didn't. I'm sorry I did that. Oh, that's a good point, Donna. Thank you for sharing. I do that sometimes, but I don't always remember. I try to put the date, like the year at least. But I'm so busy that I just like you say, I definitely need to make sure I do that. So thank you so much. The birds that are on here are chickadee, cardinal, blue jay, and woodpecker. And we've got some woodpeckers that live in our area, and they tend to go to something metal, and they just start their hammering on like a piece of, I guess it would be like the side of a house or maybe on an air conditioning unit. It's hilarious, the sound, but I feel bad for the birds because it must hurt. It's not like wood, and then wood would kind of, you know, give way to their little bird beaks. But here's another quick look at these stamps. They're amazing. I love them. That little chickadee. Look at the chickadee. So cute. So I have some happy mail that is from my friend Paula, and it's not addressed to me. It's addressed to the kids. Just got this in, and I have not had the chance to even thank her yet. So thank you, Paula, if you're watching. And if not, then I'll catch up to you later. And Karen also says that with digital pictures, it's easy to snap a picture of them holding the art. Oh, yay! That's another great one. That way, when you can't save everything, you have a picture of it. You are full of tips. You guys are amazing with the tips. This is the card that Paula made for the kids. And it's so cute. I like her design too. Isn't that cool? Paula makes the best cards. And I have one more, and this is part of a swap group that I'm in, and these were created by Stacy McCain. She is so talented. She makes wonderful art, and this is very light, so I'll have to hold it at an angle because the sunlight is going to probably distort it. Isn't that gorgeous? Absolutely gorgeous. And the other one in the package, we always swap 2 cards, is a surprise fold out. Oh, here we go. And it holds photos. There's space for 3 photos. Cool, isn't it? I always love to get her cards. They're so amazing. Fun stuff. So are you guys ready to start crafting? Today we are going to work with the velvety white paper. I have the velvety white paper that I've made with die cuts. I've done like strips of it. The texture is really, really great. But I want to try something a little bit different. So we're going to use some rubbing alcohol, and I think you guys can probably see where this might be going, shimmer paint, ink refill, and a Stampin' Spritzer. And we're going to just see what happens because I have not tested this out. I don't know how well it's going to work. We're just winging it today to see what the results are. The designer series paper that I'm going to use to create the snowflakes is from Tranquil Textures. I'll look at it. I've got it all set to the side. And I'm going to use a Balmy Blue ink refill. So we've got a little bit of a blue snowflake kind of theme going. If you're not a fan of blue, then maybe you could try this with pink tones or with gray, just to see if you can get the nice kind of shading. I use Balmy Blue a lot, and I'm going to use it here because it's going to create a little bit of a shadow. And I'll also be doing some sponging. So we've got a lot on our plate today. I'm going to switch some things around and turn the camera. And remember that if you have any questions along the way that you'd like me to answer right on the spot, please type the word question in capitals and then put your question, and I will be on the lookout for that so that I can answer it real quickly. Because I know sometimes you guys chat back and forth to each other, which is great, but I miss a lot of questions that way. And I've got also the snowflake trinkets. And I would appreciate it if you would share this video. If you are watching on Facebook with me right now or after the fact, then just hit the share button and share now, and that will share it onto your timeline. And if you are watching on YouTube, you can still share it as well. There is a share button there, and you can choose if you want to share it on Facebook or share it by email, however you like, but I do appreciate all of the shares. And if you're watching on YouTube, also I'd love it if you would like and subscribe. And if you don't want to miss any of my videos at all, then there's that little bell icon by the subscribe button. Just click the little bell and it will tell you every time I have a new video that comes up, or if I am live crafting on YouTube, because I do that as well on occasion. Right, we're going to switch some things around and I will get started. You guys can see what the first thing we're going to talk about is freezer paper. Freezer paper is not something that you have to use when you're crafting or when you do this particular technique. And this particular box of it is really beaten up because there's so much, 150 square feet, and it's a very large roll. And I've had this box for probably 6 years, maybe 7 or longer, and I use it all over the house. So this is something that is great for me to be able to pull out and use when I need it. Now, the reason that I like to use plastic coated freezer paper is because it will not allow liquid to go through. So I'm going to tear off a sheet. Sorry for the loud noise. I'm just going to get a size that's going to cover my work surface. And that's because I'm going to use a spray bottle, and I have a suspicion that it's going to go over everywhere. There we are. So I'm putting this over my grid paper and my little cushion piece that I use. And I've already pre-cut 2 pieces of the velvet paper. And for measurements, you can refer to the video description, or whenever I blog this, you can get all of the measurements that I'm going to have listed in the project. But for today, you can know that each page measures 3 3/4 by 5.5. So I'm going to set these to the side while we prep and get ready to put all of this good stuff here. I'm going to start with rubbing alcohol, and that is 70% rubbing alcohol, and you can use any kind you like. This is what they sell in my area, and I believe I probably got this from a dollar store. So I'm going to use a little tiny spout and fill it up about halfway. And then I'll make sure that I don't let it fall over while I get our other things together. Here is my little pot of shimmer paint, and this is the Frost White variety. And then I have the ink refill for Balmy Blue. I'm going to add just one drop of Balmy Blue. If I can get just one drop to come out. Okay, it kind of stuck around the edge, but when we mix things up, I think it'll be okay. And then I'm going to get one drip of the shimmer paint, and I think it's probably going to take more than just one little drop. It'll be more like a drip because it kind of runs out in a river. Ah! Okay. That's a generous amount of shimmer paint. I probably got about a half a teaspoon. So we may be up for some really big time shimmer. We'll see. Now I'm only going to mix this up, and because I filled it halfway, I get a lot of shaking action. I could always add more alcohol, and I can see that it is shimmery inside. And if I want it to be a lighter blue, then I'm going to dilute it more. So I would like it to be definitely lighter. And I think this will clean up pretty well whenever I'm finished. I'll just take it to the kitchen sink, and it should clean up nice and easy. I'm going to give this a little bit more of a shake. And here we go. We have a nice light pearl blue color. I have a couple of paper towels ready, and I'm going to make sure that I'm trying to catch as much splash as possible, because I'm worried that the acrylic is going to maybe not want to wash off of, like, maybe my camera stand, or I just want to try to be careful if I can. So giving this a nice mix up. And if you're just joining us, then we are crafting with velvet white paper. I have 2 panels here, and in my Stampin' Spritzer is Balmy Blue ink refill, Frost White shimmer paint, and rubbing alcohol. So let's try this, guys. Remember, I have not tried this yet, so it's going to be interesting. I'm going to start over here on the side just to kind of make sure that I get what was left in the mister off first. Ooh, I see shiny. And I'm going to just spray at it. I see some blue color coming up. Now this should dry up pretty quickly since it's alcohol. There's no water here. The alcohol is just a delivery system. Oh wow, it looks like I'm gonna have to refill it. So let's check it out. I do see some shine. And, oh no, there's a little bit of red here. It must have been a residue from something left in here. Yeah, there's some red coming up from someplace. That's okay, we'll cover it up. I see some shine, I see a subtle blue, and I think we can use what we've got here. I'm not sure that we need to add any more. And with shimmer paint, I have discovered that it takes a really good strong baby wipe to get it off of my hands. So I have made sure that I had some hand sanitizing wipes on hand that I keep right here on my video table. And I'm going to get that off now so that whenever I touch another piece of paper, the shimmer paint, and especially the ink refill, is not going to transfer. And these wipes have alcohol in them too, so they'll dry up quickly. So I'm not sure how well you can see this is blue, and we're going to kind of maybe give it a comparison. I'm not sure that I needed to protect my work surface as much as I did, but it's best to err on the side of caution. Now we can see a little bit of blue. I hope it shows up on the camera well enough. And I'll compare it to a piece of white cardstock. So maybe that will help you to see that it does have some color. Not a tremendous amount of color, but some. And it's a very, very subtle color. There's not a lot of dramatic change. Although, now I'm wondering if, but I want it to look like snow. So my creative brain is cranking along thinking, what if I make some places darker than other places just to see what it would look like? Because we've got a comparison to white, but this is not quite enough. Okay, folks, so we're gonna go back in and I'm going to make it a darker shade. I think this is something that we can really build on. Donna, you can see the blue? Good. I'm glad you can. I'm going to enhance that blue. It just seems like it needs to be a little bit more to me. But if you want it to stop now, if you are creating this or recreating this project, it would be perfectly fine to have light blue. However, I think it's going to be, let's see, 1, 2, 3. 3 drops of Balmy Blue. I think it's going to be fun to show how the snowflakes are going to be in contrast to the background. And this is going to be significantly darker. And maybe I can just get it to look blue in a couple of little areas. So I'm going to kind of test that out first and get some color. Oh yeah, look at there. We've got a nice bit of color. All right, now I can go high and get more blue coverage, or I can hold my Stampin' Spritzer low and have a smaller coverage and more concentrated color in one spot. And that's what I'm going to do. So here I'm going to get really close and add 1 spritz, and look, since the paper is already damp, it's just kind of taking it and spreading it out. And then maybe a little further away to make a larger spritz. Well, that one kind of stuttered a little bit, but I do like the look of it. It's really subtle. I think that kind of look is really nice. And so let's try also doing some little flicks. So let me know what you guys think this looks like. If you're loving this, I really am. It's going to have a lot of visual texture. It's going to look like falling snow. And we can go the same over here on this one. Let's see if I can hold it further away. Yeah, this is going to be, we'll try this one with a much more subtle look. And then we'll do some more of those drops. Now, if you want to use this technique with freezer paper, then you know that that's going to protect your work surface, because this fluid will not go through. So if you're working on a dining table or maybe a counter that is not going to interact friendly with the alcohol, I would suggest to protect your surface quite a bit. Now I touched the paper with the actual little piece of plastic and it pushed the flocking away. So one concern that I have is that the flocking is going to come off of the base piece. It's a possibility. Let's get this dry and we can kind of explore a little bit. I'll dry it in place. On low. So I'm hoping that once I should have tested this out and I didn't do that, but I'm hoping that once the paper itself dries out, that it's going to keep the flocking in place, because wouldn't that be a disaster if all of a sudden the flocking just slid right off the paper. So I have my heat tool set on low. Hi, Anne-Marie. Did not change my day permanently just for today because I have an appointment tomorrow that I can't miss, and so I needed to either cancel or change up the day, and I thought it would be much more fun to just change up the day than to cancel. This paper is quite wet. And it may take longer than I anticipated to dry, but since we used alcohol, this definitely could dry up. That's why I chose to use the alcohol, so that it would dry up quickly. It looks like the water really kind of cooled on the edges. So I want to give the edges lots of opportunity to dry. So we'll give this just a few minutes more and then we'll move on to creating the snowflakes. But I can see the shine. So now the paper not only has velvet, but it also has the shimmer paint, the shininess from the shimmer paint, and it has the color from the ink refill. The paper is still quite wet. So that we don't have the heat gun running, I'm going to set this to the side while we create our snowflakes. And this is going to be another technique, although probably something that is definitely familiar to you. I've got the Big Shot all set up here, ready to go. And this is the Snowfall Thinlits. So these are going to be available on November 1st to the public. That's just a few days from now. And if you are a demonstrator, you can order them now. You don't have to wait. And there's a very large amount of snowflakes on this particular die set, and they're amazing. So I just grabbed off some of the random pieces, and I have the designer series paper from Tranquil Textures. I chose this because when this type of like a tone-on-tone look is die cut, you're not going to see the pattern. You're going to see the color. It'll be a really subtle color. So we can enhance that and lighten it, brighten it, or darken it. But we can at least get our initial base color with a piece of pattern paper. So we're going to die cut these little, oh, you know what? I have a trick. Hold on. Any kind of an intricate die, I do my die cutting with the cut side up. So what I can do is just kind of sandwich this and then flip it over. And it should stay intact. This is not something that's necessary. Everybody has their own special way that they like to craft. And you could use one of the precision plates. You could use a magnetic plate. This is my way that I like to get a really nice cut. So I've done one pass and back. This will be my third pass because I want these to be, I want them to cut out really well. And this is my fourth. So up and back, up and back. With the Big Shot. And then because we're using designer series paper, they also are going to cut off really easily. And it only takes a moment to remove all the little bits. And this would be a good time to use your take a pick tool and use the pokey side or the pointy side. And we have one snowflake. They cut out really well. There's another. So I'll ask this, anybody really see much of the pattern that was on the pattern paper, or do you just see color now? Because that's one of the principles of using tone on tone in design, is that you can use it to your advantage, that you don't have to rely on the pattern that it carries. And this is the largest that I chose. It's not the largest that's in the set, but this is the largest that I chose for this project. And they die cut out so easy and so well. Perfect. Take your pick tool. We'll leave this out because I have a feeling that we'll be using it again. And I'll move these things to the side, and we're going to add some color to these. Since I have the freezer paper handy, then I'll just lay them on the freezer paper. I don't want to break them while I pick them up. I should use my take your pick tool, shouldn't I? Wouldn't that be something? It's exactly what it's for. All right, here we go. Now, since we have our little darling little snowflakes, and they are so cute. There we go. The freezer paper wants to run away. I have a sponge. This is a Stampin' sponge that I've cut up into quarters, and this is just one of the pieces. And the Whisper White pigment ink. Now I can go with the ink pad, or I can go with what's down here in the stamp pad lid. Or if you have the refill, then you can just use the ink refill directly. But these snowflakes are really pretty, but I want to give them a little bit more variation and have them appear a little bit more white. So I'll pick up some of this white pigment ink here and dab it onto the DSP. And it's just going to model things up a little more. It's going to mute down the blue. Let's use the take your pick tool. And this is going to be the putty end. And so I'll use the putty end to pick up my little snowflake. Although it's wet, I'm not sure how well it's going to pick it up. It picked it up good enough. Now, pigment ink is not going to dry as quickly as dye ink, because dye ink is based with water and pigment is not. But this gives a really nice subtle change, and we can dry them without a problem. There we are. We're almost finished with these little guys. So this is going to be definitely a winter card by the time we're finished. Set some things aside and bring all my little snowflakes over. That one piece of freezer paper has really come in handy this time. I find that I reuse them over and over again until it gets to the point to where some color is going to come off onto another project, and then that's when I call it and send it down on its way and thank it for its service. All right, so I'm now going to use my paper piercing tool, because these little snowflakes are going to, I'm going to get my finger burnt if I get too closely. So what I'll do is I'll use the end of the piercing tool and just dry up the snowflake. My heat tool is on low. The paper is really thin because we are crafting with the it's designer series paper, so it's much more thin than typical cardstock. Good morning, Miss Betty. How are you? We are crafting on a different day today. You did not wake up and miss a day. I have an appointment tomorrow, so I did not want to miss out on our crafting together. We've created a few panels that we're going to go back to in just a few moments, but in the meantime, while they dried up a little bit more, we created some snowflakes, and the snowflakes are from the Snowfall Thinlits. We have die cut them with Tranquil Textures Designer Series paper, and this is the Tone on Tone Balmy Blue piece. That type of paper that doesn't carry much of a pattern, but it has a lot of tone on tone is perfect to be able to give us something of a unique look. We've die cut our snowflakes and we have sponged on some white pigment ink. Hi Fran, how are you? Thanks for joining us today. And we're almost finished drying these little guys. And again, we're drying them because the white craft ink is not dye ink, it's not water-based, and so it takes a little bit more time, a little more effort to get them dry. And this is the tiniest snowflake, so little. I think they are dry enough. Now we'll check our panels. Yes, these are nice and dry. I really like how they came out, and I hope you guys can see the subtle change. Here is the piece of paper that we cut it from, and see how well it lightened it up, but it was a subtle change. Not anything that's too drastic. And we'll set these to the side and check on our panels. Still wet, definitely still wet. I thought it would have dried much quicker by now. This is the velvet paper, and we have, I'm going to dry it up a little bit as we're talking. So the velvet paper has been treated with a Stampin' Spritzer filled with rubbing alcohol, shimmer paint, and ink refill. And we have spritzed it on, and then I took the pump section out and dabbed it and just kind of flicked it around, and that's how those little small blue flicks will appear. I think if I can get just one of these dry enough for us to use on a card, that would be helpful. The one word of caution that we figured out so far is I think the rubbing alcohol can affect the flocking on the paper, as I touched it just a little bit here while it was wet, and the flocking kind of pushed away. So that's one word of caution that we need to keep in mind when using this specialty paper, is that the flocking might remove what adhesive they used to get the flocking to stick to the paper. So one possibility would be to use the rubbing alcohol but to mix water in with it, or to use the rubbing alcohol and let it dry naturally and not try to help it along and encourage it to dry like I'm doing. Let's see how we're doing. This feels more dry than it did. This one's a bit more wet. So I think we've got one panel dry enough to be able to do something with. And it still has that nice textured feel. All right, let's try this one. This is a little bit more dry than the other. And I've got a white card base here. I thought it would be nice to have a white contrast. And because this is as warped as it is, I am thinking that tear and tape is going to be the best adhesive that I can choose for this. So I'm going to adhere it directly down to the card base. Tear and tape is so strong. It's such a big help in my craft room. It's probably the one Stampin' Up! Tool that I carry into my household as well the most. Not that I haven't used my paper piercing tool to do something around the house. That has definitely happened. But this is the tear and tape I have used to repair my children's shoes. Like if a piece of their sneaker comes loose, then I don't want to send them out the door with floppy shoes. So I have been known to get my tear and tape and use it as a last minute fix until we can go out and after school and get some more shoes. There's always fun stuff going on in my house. Hello, Anne. So we're using the tear and tape just to really get that strong adhesive. And then remove it away, the backing. Snail is my favorite. What is your favorite adhesive, guys? Snail is my #1 because it's so fast. It works so well and it's so fast. I would say Snail is my favorite and liquid glue is my least favorite. All right. The velvet paper does pick up a little bit of lint here and there, so if you have a lint brush, that would be perfect to just run over it. I'm going to center this on my card panel, on my card base. And now we can really see that difference in the white and the blue, that it really starts showing up. So we can see that it's no longer white. It's very evident now. Anne Marie's favorite is tape. Now I'm turning this over to push on the back just to make sure I've activated all of the adhesive so that it's going to stay in one place. And we've got a nice flat area here. You can probably hear all of the little fun texture. And we're going to work with some snowflakes. It's okay if we don't use them all, but we've got a few to choose from. I think I'm going to need to cover up this area here at the bottom just because that's where my little boo-boo is. And we've got this little guy as well. Maybe I can save him for the inside of the card. And the snowflake trinkets would make a nice addition too. Maybe just have one just to show off really shiny. Wouldn't that be nice? I'll get some adhesive for this. I think it's probably going to be mini glue dots. And the one thing I did not grab in advance was my stamp set. So I'm going to grab the stamp set. Let's see. We can choose between Happiness Surrounds and Snow is Glistening. That's a tough choice. These are both wonderful stamp sets, but this is a really tough choice. Sometimes choosing the sentiment is the tough part, but I think this would fit really well here. Sending a blizzard of wishes for a wonderful season, and I'll get a little piece of paper here. Betty says that she thinks it really depends on the project, tape and glue. Liquid glue tends to get all over my fingers, and that's the one thing that I don't like. It transfers from one thing to touching another thing. And that's the one reason why I try to stay away from liquid glue when I possibly can. All right, we're gonna have a little sentiment here. So snow is glistening will be the one. This is all blue, and wow, is that almost too much blue? I think it is. I grabbed Balmy Blue. Let me go for gray. So we could use basic gray or smoky slate. This is what the two would look like in comparison. Smoky slate would work really well and be very subtle, but basic gray would allow the sentiment to really be seen. So I think that might be the better choice. Hi, Janice. I'm sorry you can't sleep today, but I am really happy to see you join us today. We are crafting with the velvet paper. We've treated it by coloring it and adhering it to our card base. And now we are going to add our sentiment. We've also treated our snowflakes. I have not used this sentiment before, so I am going to rough it up just a little bit with my finger. I tend to just kind of move my hand over it a little bit, and that way it's going to not be as resistant to the ink. Sometimes I just kind of move it along my grid paper and create a little friction on it, and that will help it to be able to stamp off a little bit better. There's lots of different ways that we all have in our back pocket, little tricks that we can share. So I've got a piece of paper that's big enough to go try a couple of times. That worked out straight. Can you guys believe it? Without my stamparatus, I do not stamp anything straight. So we can keep this snowflake down at the bottom. This is the one that's going to cover our boo-boo. And I'll add this little sentiment over here on the side. And then we'll start adhering some things together. I thought maybe flag the end, but I'm now thinking that it might look better just to go straight. And then we can place some of the snowflakes above and some of the snowflakes below. This is going to pop up on a few Stampin' Dimensionals. I'll use 4, that way I get a nice good contact, and it will help the snowflakes to stay in place. Oh, I'm glad you like it. Thanks, Janice. Okay, I'll start with the snowflakes staying where they are, and then I can add some mini glue dots underneath them. Kind of adjust things. I'd like to have this one hang off of the flocked paper, off the velvet paper just a little bit. I want this snowflake to not be underneath, but the big one would look great underneath. Kind of place it here on the side to where the edge of my sentiment is flush with the card base. So this snowflake isn't going anyplace at all. And one mini glue dot behind the center of this snowflake should do the trick. But this is designer paper, so I'm going to be very careful not to pull. Like if my mini glue dot gets stuck to my finger, I'm going to try to be gentle And maybe place a folded, a little folded mini glue dot underneath this large snowflake here. And remember, that's not the largest in the set for the snowfall thinlits. It's probably next to the largest. This one can come back around here. If it had a center, then I could add it on a dimensional, but that's all right. So I'm going to fold up a mini glue dot, and if you haven't tried that before, what I do is I use my paper piercing tool, I touch the edge of the glue dot and just kind of push it until it rolls up on itself. And it might sometimes wrap around the edge of the paper piercing tool, and that's okay. It's not going to hurt anything that way. But I'll place my item that I want to have in a certain area, and then find a place that has paper that is wide enough to adhere this particular piece of glue dot, like one of the joints in the snowflake, and then kind of slide it out after I apply some pressure. And that's usually enough just to hold some things in place. I'll give it another one on the other side. And somehow if the mini glue dot goes rogue and decides to go in a different place, then one thing you could do is use your piercing bag, your embossing putty, sorry, and you can deactivate some of that stickiness. Just pounce it a few times on the area that has the adhesive, and it'll come right to the point to where it's not going to be sticky anymore. Here we go. We've got that little area here covered up of the little boo-boo that I made. Now for some sparkly, I think we can use a little bit of sparkly on this. Although the paper, the white paper does have shimmer, I think I would like to have just a little bit more. And I love the depth. Can you guys see? This kind of looked a little bit like, it has the look of the watercolor smush. Now if we were to add one of these sparkly snowflakes, it might be, So I think I need you guys' opinion. What do you think? If we have just one of these snowflakes, would it be enough, or is it going to require perhaps a few snowflakes? But I really like these little trinkets. They are so pretty. So these are like jewels, Betty. Generally, I work in thirds, though. Either I put one of something or I put three of something, but two doesn't always work out well for my design eye. But I tell you what, if I add a rhinestone to the center of this one here, I'll grab a rhinestone. So one of these really small rhinestones in the center here. And that would give me my third focal point. What do you guys think? What do you think about these trinkets? Oh, I'd have to add one here too. The trinkets are pretty okay. We've gotten one positive feedback about those. Here's another little rhinestone here. So now all the snowflakes match. Okay, I'm going to use the mini glue dots to adhere the trinkets in place. The mini glue dot is a little bit bigger than the area, but I don't think it's going to really affect anything. I want to give it as much area on the back to keep itself in place. This is turning out to be a rather special card, isn't it? Because we have the velvet paper, and we have the trinkets, and we've treated the trinket, we've treated the snowflakes, we have treated the velvet paper, I'm really liking the results. There we go, kind of move this into position. I'm going to hold it in place just a little bit. And these trinkets are really not too high profile to where they're going to bother things inside the mailing, but it probably will still not be machinable. It'll have to be hand sorted. Philomena is liking the trinkets too. Great. Wonderful. This is one good thing about me having such a small craft room is I can turn around and grab something and it's all right at hand. All right, we're gonna finish this card off on the inside with another one of those beautiful little snowflakes. And this is just a white panel that's cut to 4 inches by 5 1/4. And this is enough glue. The little dots I put are just perfect to hold it in place. And I'll use another glue dot to hold this little guy. You could use liquid glue in this case, but I want to make sure that I don't get any stray liquid glue. There we go. Janice, for the paper, I'll show you in just a moment. Now this glue dot's a little bit larger here, but like I mentioned before, the embossing buddy, if you just kind of dab the embossing buddy, that's the bag, the anti-static bag that we use to treat our paper before we do embossing. But the powder will also deactivate that little bit of adhesive that's hanging over. The paper is the white velvet paper, and we used some shimmer paint, which was the Frost white shimmer paint, and we put this into the Stampin' Spritzer with Balmy Blue, and I did it in a couple of stages, so if you go back and watch the video from the beginning, that'll show you all the stages. But we've got the Balmy Blue ink refill and some rubbing alcohol. And people in different parts of the world call this different, but this is, here they'll call it isopropyl alcohol, and it's just basic. You can pick it up at the dollar store or the pharmacy, just regular alcohol. And the way that we treated the paper is that we used it with a spritzer. And then I used the nozzle end, spritzing, and then I took the pump out and flicked it. And this is the darker of the two applications that we made. And when the paper dries up, it's going to kind of bow a little bit. So we use the tear and tape to kind of keep it in place. This is the other panel that we created. And so it had a subtle color first, and then we added the darker color. And compared with the white background, I really like the way that it kind of stands up. The velvet paper, I mean, and that it kind of really stands up and makes itself be noticed. So I hope you guys liked this project today. Oh, thank you, Renee. Thanks, Janice. If you are, again, if you're watching, then I would appreciate if you share the video. And if you have any questions, if you're watching after the fact, then just, I'm happy to answer them. And this is the Snowflake Showcase. The stamp set that we used is Snow is Glistening. And part of the Snowflake Showcase is these little beautiful snowflake trinkets, which you could see today that they work perfectly in conjunction with the die cuts. And this paper that I used for the snowflakes is not related to Snowflake Showcase. It is from Tranquil Textures. And this is the piece of paper that we used. And you can see that it just has a very subtle blue tone-on-tone look, and the opposite side looks like the little bubbles. Very easy, and we use the Snowfall Thinlits dies. Fun card. I had a lot of fun treating this paper and working on a new technique, and it's just always something fun. I love my job. I love what I do. And I appreciate you guys supporting me with what I do. This is going to make somebody's Christmas be extra special when they receive this card. They're just going to love it. Now, one other thing I want to mention about this card is that it's kind of lightweight. It does have 2 trinkets here, but it's a low profile card. We only have 1 layer of dimensionals. So when the post office is going to pick up a piece of mail, if they question it, whether it can be machined or not, then the first thing the gentleman does is he kind of bends things like this. And if it can go through the machine, then that's great. What I would do is I would make sure that these trinket areas are going to be at the top part, because the bottom part of the envelope is what goes through the machine. The top part, I don't know that it does. I know for a fact the bottom goes through though. So this might be something that would hang up if the machine works from the top. If we have any postal employees with us today, maybe they can share the information for us. But this is something that we can definitely send out for Christmas, and you can make a lot of these panels. And remember that this velvet paper is going to go on sale on November the 1st, and I have a suspicion that it is going to go fast, that it is not going to last at all. As far as I know, the products in the Snowflake Showcase are while supplies last. So if you do like this, then I appreciate if you would shop it in my online store. And you can get to my shopping links by going to jennyhalldesign.com and click on the Shop Now button. If you like and purchase the Snowflake Showcase, any of the products that are from this particular special release, I will have a special exclusive tutorial to share with you guys that has some ideas that are in a PDF form, and you'll be able to get one of those big giant mega tutorials full of ideas on how to use these products, and then we'll continue to use them while they're available for sale, and with fun things like learning a new technique. So the shimmer paint and ink refill with alcohol, and we've got this lovely gorgeous velvet paper that we could give it a really fun technique. I want to thank you all today for taking the time to spend with me. So I will not be live tomorrow on my Facebook channel. Today is going to take place of what would be tomorrow. And I will see you guys back here next week. And I hope you have a wonderful week. And I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.